The low hum of the ultrasound swallowed the white room. Dr. Grant tilted the wand across the cool gel and smiled. Congratulations, everything looks healthy. And Julia, it is twins. In a blink, the world split in two. On the screen, two tiny pulses flashed. In my chest, an older tide rose. I did not laugh. I did not shout. I said no in a voice that sounded like gravel. No, please, not to. If you are listening and want to walk through the bends of ordinary lives that hide storms, subscribe to Missreddit now so we can meet every night in a quiet chair with a truth you did not expect. Now, let me tell you what happened. Mark squeezed my hand. We can do this. His palm was a small ember pressed on the sheet of ice spreading inside me. Dr. Grant kept speaking about measurements and charts, and 2 strong heartbeats. But the word twins banged around my skull like urgent knocking. I was 10 again on a wobbling stool, reaching the stove, one arm holding a baby, the other stirring noodles, the stale smoke from the living room clinging to the door frame like a warning. In that house of 8 children, joy was always watered down until it vanished. I had sworn I would grow up and choose one child only, one soul I could hold and name and see. Not the second mother of a tired brood. We left the clinic into a dusting rain that felt like chalk on the air. Mark drove, the way he always did when I was on the edge. Quiet, solid, one hand on the wheel, and one on my knee. Not prying, not lecturing. The tissues in my fist turned to paper threads. I wanted to love those 2 bright seeds. But fear rose first. Fear of dissolving in a bottomless sink of duties. Fear of double cries, shredding the night into ragged strips. I cannot. He said, you are not alone anymore. The house we had built with evenings of pine dust and hammers breathed us in with soap and sea wind. I sank onto the sofa with my hand on my belly, as if holding a restless tambourine. Mark knelt in front of me and spoke the way a man who is not good with speeches speaks, with his face. I know what you carry out of that old house. This is not that place. You are not that child. I half laughed and half grimaced. You drew this house with a yard for one, he said. I drew wide windows to catch more than one sunrise. His answer was so soft, I wanted to cry and argue at once. That night, the timber walls sighed like a docked ship. I did not sleep. I opened a drawer and slid out the glossy pictures. 2 smudges that looked like punctuation marks lined up beside baby A and baby B. If you are a test one, have studied all my childhood, I whispered. I smiled into the dark in the strange, proud way that arrives when you are exhausted and still standing. Mark came into my life like a lamp set at the right brightness, not blinding, not dim. We met over a housing campaign. He, the architect, I, the copywriter, both editing past meals. He brewed coffee with ratios as precise as a floor plan. I learned to trust the straight lines in his eyes. We married by the bay with few guests and much wind, and a list of later we will do this. Later he drew a wide kitchen window. I planted herbs by the steps. Later we said one child and he nodded. I saw hesitation flicker and vanish. He did not push, he knew how to wait. Then a morning with a motor's hum, said twins, and every object in our home began to echo. Rocking chair doubled, bottles doubled. The soft thud of the dryer doubled. I made lists the way a stock clerk freezes chaos into a ledger. Dr. Grant emailed a plan for hydration and rest and lining up help. Help from where, when the empty part of me felt like the most dangerous thing? Mark came home one rainy afternoon with a small bouquet. For more light in the kitchen, he said, and set it in a glass jar by the faucet. I counted petals the way I counted beets, as if I could prove the +1 would make 3 and not a subtraction that erased me. He hauled out rough boards and said, I will build a cradle or 2 if we need. In his eyes there was the plain lumber of hope, which to me looked like a raft. I could either climb on or watch it drift away. Let me tell you about the house I grew up in, so you understand my fear. Winters I slept in every shirt I owned. Mornings smelled like beer trapped in old curtains. My mother was a bench, that never moved. My father came and went, with the clink of glass instead of hello. I kept time. I woke the children, braided hair, packed thin lunches, checked homework, told stories through a throat too tired to sing. At some point I forgot my own birthday, but I knew all of theirs and the rent due dates hidden in my mother's drawer. My one-child vow was not selfish. It was a life ring I threw to myself. Now 2 small hands were gripping that ring, and I was afraid all 3 of us would sink. Near midnight, Mark measured the bedroom wall with a steel tape. The crisp tick of the blade was a metronome. "What are you doing?" I asked. He said, "Maybe we open the window a little wider so there's more light." "You always add light," I said. "Because darkness arrives on its own," he said. The truth was so simple, it burned. Morning brought a small ritual. I warmed cocoa and stood by the rosemary pot and spoke softly to the children who had no names. "You came together. Maybe I must learn a new rhythm. 2 hands, 2 tasks. 2 cries as harmony, not noise." I laughed. What music is written for 2 tiny lungs? The thought helped, because music demands listening, and listening is how I survived my youth. At the next appointment, Dr. Grant tapped the screen. "Baby A kits strong, baby B rolls." Wonderful. I asked all the ordinary questions. Weight, risks, dates. What I needed, though, was a prescription for the past, and no doctor can write it. Outside, Mark said, "Let us walk by the bay," and we moved through air the color of steel. "If I break," I said, "then I will break with you," he said. The sentence was short. It felt like a vow. At night, we tried names. Mark spoke of grandparents and names that had walked through wars and harvests. I lifted syllables like shells and listened for the sea inside each Aiden call. They clicked together like 2 pebbles in a child's pocket. I did not tell him I was not ready to speak them out loud. Sometimes a name turns a possibility into a fact. Days slid by and I prepared as if a long pass awaited. I bought 2 thin blankets in different colors to remind myself love does not have to match. I taped a page to the fridge with a help me list. A friend, a neighbor, a nurse. I practiced saying, "Please help me," as if it were a new language, because in my old house help was rarer than candy. Mark added a shelf to his sketch, a small perch below the window for warmed bottles, a rest stop inside a race. One afternoon while I folded laundry, I looked out and saw the neighbor's boy. Shoes too loose, thin sweater lifting in the wind. He trailed his parents like a shadow. I did not yet know his name was Liam, or the damp smell of his hair in rain, or the frayed rabbit he hugged like an anchor. I only felt the bridge of my nose sting the way it does when an old story refuses to close. I laid my hand on my belly. 2 small drummers tapped back. "I see him," I said. That night, I dreamed of a boat. On it, there were 4 of us. At the rail, a child stood shivering. I reached. My wet palm slipped. I woke with my heart pounding like emergency knocks. Mark pulled me close. "We are okay," he said. Not yet, I thought, but we will be. Sunday, we dusted the small room that would be a nursery. Mark drilled holes and hung a wooden frame carved with tiny stars. I smoothed the crib sheets. The detergent smelled like mild surf. When it all fit, I sat on the floor and rested my back against the rail and gave the air a long sigh like returning borrowed breath to the sea. I touched the frame. It was cool. I pictured little fingers grabbing the edge of fabric and tugging it toward a mouth and the soft smacks that all babies make. A new thought flickered. Maybe love is a skill as much as an instinct. I learned how to feed 8 small mouths with 1 bag of flour. Maybe I can learn to split myself in 2 and remain whole. That evening, I wrote 1 line on a black notebook. If fear is a shadow, stand where the sun is. I taped it to the cupboard. Mark read it and smiled. It is good, he said. I will build a small ledge to hang it by the clock. He always turns my words into wood so I cannot step back. I want to say I am ready. I am not. But I have a man who builds cradles and opens windows. I have a bright kitchen. I have 2 heartbeats that refuse to be anything but alive. And I have you. You who are listening, watching a woman try not to rebuild an old house by making a new one. If one night you hear 2 babies crying and think the world is ending, remember that sometimes it is only the first movement of a family. Outside, the rain stopped. I opened the window. Sea wind touched the glasses and made a faint chime. I set the ultrasound photos on the sill to drink the moon like small charms. I closed my eyes, and for the first time since the appointment, I spoke aloud. Hello, my loves. They arrived on a gray morning that turned to gold by noon. At Maine Medical Center, to cry split the air and stitched it back together. The room filled with motion, nurses moving like tide, Mark saying thank you over and over. Aiden first in my arms, warm and loud, Cole second, fierce and quieter, both of them red and wrinkled and perfect. Sweat ran into my hairline. My hands shook. The shock of doubling was real. The fear was real, too. But when their tiny ribs lifted against my chest, I felt something widen in me, the way a window slides past its frame and lets in more light than the room believed possible. We brought them home to the timber house that had waited like a held breath. The days blurred and sorted themselves. Hours were measured in ounces, and ounces were measured in minutes. We learned the shift work of love. Mark walked at 3 a.m. with a baby on his shoulder and plans for a rocking cradle in his head. I charted feeds on a pad near the sink and then stopped charting when my body understood the music better than ink did. We laughed in whispers at the way their arms flailed in mirror debates. I learned their cries as if they were notes. Aiden was a bright trumpet. Cole was a low cello. Together, they were not noise. They were a chord. Love did not divide, it multiplied. The sentence used to sound like a slogan on a church bulletin. Now it had a smell like warm milk and cedar, and a sound like twin breathing in the dark. Outside our windows, the street ran past tidy houses and weathered fences. People waved with grocery bags and dog leashes and strollers. On one of those walks, to shake loose the fog of sleep, I noticed the boy across the way again. His sweater was too thin. His cheeks were pale. He pressed his palms to a chain-link fence and watched my babies the way children watch birds. Curiosity first, then longing. Mark followed my gaze. He is their child. He sighed gently. It is not our place. I nodded. But his face stayed with me like a note that refuses to resolve. The rain came heavy a week later. Portland wears rain like an old coat. You can forget that you are wet until you touch your skin. My hair stuck to my cheek as I passed the abandoned house on the corner. At first, the rustle in the bushes sounded like wind, then like a small animal, then like a swallowed sob. I bent and there he was. The boy from across the street, jeans soaked and clinging. Socks streaked with mud, no shoes. A stuffed rabbit pressed to his chest as if to keep it from floating away. His lips were the color of the sky. "What are you doing out here, sweetheart?" I said. "Daddy is mad. Mommy is mad," he whispered. The rabbit's ear dripped rain. "Come with me. We will get warm." He hesitated. Trust is a door most children learn not to open for strangers. Then he slid out of the wet leaves and placed his hand in mine, and I felt it. That quick electrical snap that some people call fate and other people call choice. At home, I stripped the chills off him and wrapped him in dinosaur pajamas, meant for a future my twins would grow into. I warmed cocoa and set the rabbit on a towel, like a patient just out of surgery. He sipped and closed his eyes, and for a moment there was only the sound of heart moving through a small body. The nanny came from the nursery with a puzzled look. "Who is this?" "A neighbor," I said too fast. "Here to play a little." She nodded, because I asked her to leave early, and she needed the permission more than she needed the full story. The door opened and Mark stepped in with rain on his shoulders. He froze. "Julia, why is Liam here?" I did not know his name until I heard Mark say it. The word landed like a pin in a map. I found him outside. He was freezing. I could not leave him. We have to take him back, Mark said quietly. He has parents. It is not our place to decide. The sentence was reasonable. It rubbed my skin like sandpaper. They do not take care of him, I snapped and heard my voice break on the hard rocks of old memories. He was shivering. He was alone. What kind of parents let that happen? We stood on either side of the kitchen island, like a couple on a narrow bridge, trying to pass one another without falling. I know it is awful, he said, but if we cross a line without thinking we could hurt him more, we can call someone. We can report it. I shook my head, and the tears came fast and hot. I know what it is to be the one no one looks after. Do not ask me to return him to cold. The air thickened. The only sound was Liam sipping, and the faint tick of the clock we had hung above my small ledge, with a sentence about sun and shadow. In the end, Mark put on his jacket and we walked Liam across the street together, because even mercy can require rules. The parents took him with words too loud and eyes too bright. I felt sick walking away. That night I could not sleep. Every time the twins breathed, I heard rain on leaves and a boy whispering that his father was angry. The neighborhood talks. Every block has its wire. The next Saturday, the wire snapped with a hot spark. An accident. Our neighbor texted, a car. The couple across the street, they did not make it. The room shrank. The nursery light painted my hands pale. I wrote back and then forgot what I wrote. In the morning, the story moved with grocery carts and dog leashes. Relatives came, someone said, asked about the house, not the boy. I put milk on the belt and my fingers trembled. Foster care, someone whispered. That is what will happen. Those two words hit me harder than the news. I pictured Liam's eyes, too old for him. I pictured his rabbit now dry, now carried into rooms that smelled like other people's laundry. I pictured his name leaving a file and entering a system like a river mouth where fresh water disappears into a salty churn. That night, I held both twins well past the time we were supposed to set them down. Mark found me in the rocker. What is going on? They will send him into foster care, I said. The family does not want him. What will happen to him? Mark ran a hand through his hair. I do not know. We cannot fix everything. I shook my head and felt a heat that was not anger and not courage and not fear, but some alloy of all three. I cannot stand by and watch. Not after what I saw. Not after who I was. I will not let him be passed like a package no one signed for. The decision formed itself while the rain moved its fingers against the windows. I stared at the ceiling and saw Pennsylvania. Again, the cramped house, the list of tasks instead of a childhood. I knew the feeling of being invisible. I could not let that fill another child's chest. I waited until after dinner the next night. The babies slept upstairs. The house made its tiny nighttime noises. Mark sketched at the table, pencil balanced between his fingers. I stood there with my hands on the back of a chair and said, I want us to adopt Liam. The pencil rolled and fell to the floor. Julia, do you know what you are saying? Yes. His parents are gone. His relatives do not want him. He will be sent into foster care. I cannot let that happen. Mark leaned back with a long breath. Adoption is not a door you open in an evening. It is months of forms and interviews and home studies and court dates. It is money and scrutiny and time. It is not simply love. I know. I have read everything I can. I do not care how hard. He needs us. What about Aiden and Cole? We barely sleep. Is it fair to them? If we do not step in, it is not fair to Liam either. He did not ask for this. He is 3. He will be bounced and he will learn the wrong lesson about his own worth. I know what that feels like. Silence stretched and held. Mark's face changed in quiet ways. He was a practical man. He had made a life out of lines and loads and weight-bearing walls. But he was also the man who had built a shelf to hold a sentence about light. He reached across the table and covered my hand. If we do this, we do it right. No more shortcuts. Through the system. Through the court. I nodded, and the yes came out on a breath that tasted like relief and fear at once. Weeks braided themselves into a process. A caseworker from the department came with a binder and walked through our rooms and our lives. We were fingerprinted. We were measured. Our pantry was praised. Our outlets were covered. We met the aunt and uncle from another state, who looked at the floor when they spoke. "We cannot take him," she said. "Better for him to go to a family who truly wants him." The words were meant to be practical. They landed like a bruise. There were hearings scheduled and moved. There were forms notarized and printed twice because of a misspelled name. There were calls made from the car while the twins napped and emails answered near midnight. There were questions about our finances and our marriage and our time. I told the truth. I am afraid. I was a child who had to be a parent. I want to choose this now with my eyes open and my hands steady. The caseworker nodded and wrote something on a line I could not read. The day came and we stood before a judge in a room that smelled faintly of dust and carpet cleaner. I held Liam's hand. It felt different than the first time. Warmer. He looked up at the seal on the wall like it was a moon. The judge asked the question every story asks at the exact midpoint. "Are you prepared to take responsibility as if this child had been born to you?" "Yes," I said. Mark said, "Yes." The gavel's crack was the cleanest sound I have ever heard. We drove home, a family of 5. The house knew. Some places dough. The light in the hallway looked wider. The air felt new. We took Liam to the small blue room. "This is yours," I said. He touched the quilt with 2 fingers, like it might vanish if he was too bold. "Can I say hi to my brothers?" "Of course." He stood by the crib and whispered hi and smiled a shy, square smile that undid me. That night, the house settled and Mark spread a sheet of graph paper. I brewed tea and watched him draw. He lifted his head, and I felt a tremor in my throat. "Say it," he said. "I am pregnant." The pencil stopped. His chair scraped. He crossed the room in 2 steps. Oh my God. His arms went around me and his hand found the back of my head and held me like a small miracle he was afraid to drop. "Are you sure?" the doctor said. "I know. 3 tests. Blood work. It is real. This is not a burden," he said. "This is a gift. Aiden, Cole, Liam, and now 1 more. We are richer than my plans." In the days after, the house filled with a measured fever. Mark drew a swing set and a sandbox and a border of flowers by the fence. He staked the yard on a Saturday. Liam carried a hammer that was too light to be real and very real to him. The twins watched from the playpen and slapped their hands on plastic like a drumline. I knelt by the soil and tucked seeds into rows. My hands were dirty. My heart was not heavy. At night, I stood in the doorway and counted heads. 2 in the crib, 1 under a blue quilt, 1 inside me. For years, I had begged fate for only 1 child because I thought that was the only number I could carry without breaking. Now the arithmetic had changed. Love did not ask me to be smaller. It asked me to be larger. I could do that. I had been doing that since I was 10. This time, I would do it with help, and with windows, and with music. When I turned off the lamp, I heard it again. The faint song of glass in the sea wind. I do not know if it was real. I do not mind if it was not. Some sounds you choose to believe. Spring came back to Portland like a shy guest. Rain lifting off the bay, flowers hesitant on their stems. By then, the paperwork was done. The hearings completed. The signatures sealed in ink. Our family had settled into a rhythm that almost felt ordinary. Almost, but life has a habit of saving one more turn for those who think they may reach the calm. Liam adapted to us faster than I had dared to hope. He learned to say please without flinching, to laugh without checking if it was allowed. Some nights, he'd tiptoe into our room, clutching that same gray rabbit, whispering about thunder or dreams he couldn't explain. I would lift the blanket and let him crawl between us, his small heartbeat tapping against my arm. Mark would pretend to be asleep, but I could feel the smile hiding in his breath. For every night Liam slept without crying, I counted it as one piece of healing. The twins adored him. Aiden followed him like a shadow. Cole copied everything he did. Our house, once quiet, was now a world of footsteps, giggles, and half-spilled juice. It should have been chaos, but it was the sweetest kind. Then came the appointment that changed everything. Dr. Grant looked at my file and frowned, then smiled like she was fighting disbelief. "Julia, you're pregnant again." I almost laughed. It was impossible. After the twins, she'd said my chances were close to zero. And yet, here I was, clutching the edge of the table while the old panic and new joy wrestled inside me. At home, Mark stared at the test in my hand. "You're serious? 3 tests and a blood draw." He pulled me into his arms, kissed my forehead, whispered, "Then, it's a miracle." We decided to tell the kids in our own small way. Mark built a tiny wooden sign that said, "Coming soon." We planted it next to the swing set, right between the flower beds. Liam stared at it, reading each letter out loud, then looked up with wide eyes. "Another baby?" I nodded. He thought for a moment, then said, "I'll help." Simple words, but they carried the weight of something bigger, a child promising to protect a home that had once protected him. Months passed. My belly grew, so did our lives. Mark expanded the back porch to make room for a longer table. We added hooks for more coats, space for more shoes. The house stretched with us, like it knew how to breathe. I spent afternoons watching the boys in the yard, their laughter rising with the sea wind. Liam was patient with the twins, teaching them how to tie shoelaces, how to share, how to listen. I sometimes caught him watching me, eyes serious. "Are you okay, Mom?" he'd ask. The first time he called me that, I had to turn away to hide my tears. That one word healed something I didn't know was still broken. And then Sophie arrived. A storm had rolled in the night. My contractions began. Lightning flashed behind the window as Mark rushed to pack the bag. I remember gripping his hand in the hospital, whispering, "I can't do this again." He kissed my hair and said, "You already are." Hours later, Sophie was born, a small, bright cry that sounded almost like laughter. When the nurse placed her in my arms, the room seemed to fill with a light I can't describe. At home, the boys stood in line to meet their sister. Liam bent first, touching her tiny fingers. "Hi, Sophie," he said softly. "I'm your big brother." Mark glanced at me over his shoulder, his smile trembling with something between exhaustion and awe. "She's perfect," I whispered. "She's ours," he said. Weeks later, I found Liam sitting in the nursery, reading from a picture book to the sleeping baby. The twins snored in the next room. I leaned in the doorway and listened. His voice was calm, steady. He wasn't just reading to her. He was keeping a promise. To her, to us, to himself. That summer, the backyard bloomed like never before. Mark's swing set stood finished, the sandbox full of new sand. The flower beds glowed with tulips. Every corner of the house held a trace of laughter. I used to believe one child was all my heart could handle. Now, with 4, I realized love didn't stretch thin. It grew deeper, like roots that find water no matter how far they must go. On Sophie's first birthday, we gathered in the garden. Aiden and Cole blew bubbles that floated toward the bay. Liam held the cake steady while Mark lit the candles. When Sophie clapped her hands, everyone laughed. For a moment, I saw it clearly. The life I'd once feared would drown me had become the very thing that saved me. I caught Mark's gaze and smiled. "We made it," I said. He kissed the top of my head. "We did. And somehow, we keep making it." The children chased bubbles through the fading light, their laughter weaving through the air like music. For the first time in a long time, I realized something simple and true. I was not repeating my parents' story. I was rewriting it. 3 years passed, like a blink filled with scraped knees, bedtime stories, and the steady rhythm of a life that had finally found its song. Our home by the bay had transformed into a small world of its own. The swing set Mark built stood strong against the coastal wind. The flower beds I planted bloomed in waves of color, changing with every season. And inside, the laughter of 4 children filled every quiet space I once feared. Sophie, now a bundle of curls and curiosity, toddled through the house clutching her favorite wooden spoon as if it were a magic wand. Aiden and Cole, 6 years old and inseparable, chased her from room to room, half brothers, half storm. Liam now had grown taller, steadier, with eyes that carried more calm than most adults I knew. He had long stopped clutching his stuffed rabbit at night, but it still sat on his shelf, patched and loved, a quiet witness to how far we'd all come. That afternoon, sunlight spilled through the kitchen window as I prepared lemonade for the small backyard picnic we'd promised the kids. The air smelled faintly of salt and cut grass. Mark was outside, stringing up balloons for Sophie's 3rd birthday, whistling a tune under his breath. His hair had silvered slightly at the temples, proof that time had been working softly but surely on both of us. When the table was set, I stood by the door and just watched them. Sophie in a yellow dress, wobbling as she carried napkins bigger than her face. Aiden and Cole arguing over who would blow the first balloon. Liam kneeling to help Sophie without being asked. The sight made something inside me swell so full it hurt. Mark caught my gaze through the open door. "What?" he asked, smiling. "Nothing," I said, my voice catching. "Just us." He grinned. "Us is pretty good, isn't it?" "It's perfect." The party was small, just us, a few neighbors, and the hum of summer in the air. We sang off. Sophie clapped before the song even ended, eager to blow out the candles. When she finally did, I caught a whiff of melted wax and frosting and thought, this is what happiness smells like. Simple, fleeting, real. Later, as twilight stretched across the yard, the kids sprawled on the picnic blanket, sticky with cake and laughter. Liam sat cross-legged, carefully braiding Sophie's short curls into 2 uneven pigtails. She giggled, squirming under his touch. "Hold still, Soph. It's supposed to be pretty," he said. "It tickles." "Beauty always takes a little patience," he teased, sounding far older than his years. Aiden and Cole darted around them, chasing fireflies with plastic jars, arguing about whose light shone brighter. Mark lay beside me on the blanket, his arm behind his head, watching them. The soft buzz of crickets wrapped around us like a lullaby. "You ever think about how close we came to not having this?" he asked quietly. "All the time," I said. "Every time they laugh, every time they fight, every time I get to kiss them goodnight, I think about it." Mark turned his head toward me. "And do you regret it?" "Not even a second," I whispered. "I used to think love was something you could measure, something that could run out. But now, it's infinite, Mark. It just keeps multiplying." He smiled, brushing his fingers against mine. "That's all I ever wanted you to see." The children's laughter rose again as Liam lifted Sophie and spun her gently under the lantern light. Her tiny hands reached for the sky, glowing in the soft gold air. I thought of the girl I used to be, the one who swore she would only ever raise one child, who feared being swallowed by responsibility. That girl had built walls made of survival. But somewhere between diapers and midnight lullabies, between foster papers and fresh beginnings, those walls had turned into windows. And through those windows, light had poured in, warm, chaotic, and endless. The stars began to appear, one by one, reflected in the bay behind our house. The twins, tired from running, curled up on the blanket. Sophie climbed into my lap, sticky fingers clutching the hem of my shirt. Liam leaned against my shoulder, quiet and content. Mark reached over and placed his hand on mine, his thumb tracing slow circles. "Look at them," I said softly. "I am," he replied, "and I still can't believe they're ours." "Neither can I," he smiled. "You know what the best part is?" "What?" "They're going to grow up, knowing love doesn't have limits. That's something neither of us had." His words landed deep, gentle, and true. For a long while, we didn't speak. We just watched the stars drift and the fireflies flicker, the children breathing in sleep. That night, after the kids had been carried inside and the lights turned low, I stood at the window, watching the reflection of our family in the dark glass. For once, it wasn't a shadow of fear staring back. It was a mirror of peace. I thought of Liam's first night in the rain, of the twins' first cries, of Sophie's impossible heartbeat, of all the moments that could have broken me, but instead built me into someone stronger. My parents' house had been filled with noise and absence, love and neglect tangled together, but mine ours was filled with laughter and choice. I whispered into the quiet, "We did it." Behind me, Mark's voice came soft and certain. "We always will." The night settled around us like a blanket, warm and alive. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to look back. The sun hung low over the bay, melting gold across the water. Our backyard glowed in that late summer haze, the kind of light that made everything look softer, like the world itself had exhaled. The picnic blanket from Sophie's birthday still lay under the maple tree, its corners weighed down by empty cups and a forgotten toy truck. The air smelled faintly of lemonade, grass, and something even sweeter, peace. Aiden and Cole raced each other across the yard, their laughter ricocheting off the fence. Sophie stood wobbling near the swing set, her curls bouncing, arms stretched out for balance. And just behind her, steady and sure, was Liam. At 12, he had grown taller than my shoulder, his voice deeper but still gentle. He moved with quiet purpose, part boy, part guardian angel. "Go on, Soph," he said, his tone patient. "You can do it. Just one more step." Sophie grinned, the kind of grin that made her whole face glow, and took a shaky stride forward. Mark clapped from the porch, cheering like it was the Olympics. "That's my girl." Sophie collapsed into giggles, falling into my arms. I scooped her up and pressed a kiss to her cheek, the scent of sun-warmed skin filling my chest with something wordless. For a while, we just watched them, our children, our miracles, our chaos and calm woven together. The swing creaked softly as the twins pushed each other higher, Liam's voice drifting through the air like a promise. Mark sat beside me on the blanket, his knee brushing mine. He looked older now, but in a way that made him more himself, lines around his eyes that came from laughter, not worry. "Do you ever think about that first ultrasound?" he asked suddenly. I smiled. "Every time I hear them laugh. You cried so hard that day, I was terrified." "I know," he said softly, "but look at us now." I did, and the sight undid me a little. 4 children, 1 man who never stopped believing, 1 woman who had once sworn she couldn't do this and somehow did. "I used to think," I said, "that love was like a glass of water. You could only pour so much before it ran out. But now I know it's more like the ocean. You can keep giving, and it never empties. It just finds new shores." Mark chuckled, eyes glinting. "You always find the right words. That's because you gave me something worth writing about." The twins came running toward us, breathless and wild. "Mom, Dad, Liam says we can camp in the yard tonight." Mark raised an eyebrow. "Did he now?" Liam jogged up, grinning. "Only if we can stay up late and tell stories." I laughed. "You? Stories?" He shrugged, that same quiet confidence I'd seen in him since the day we brought him home. "Guess I learned from the best." That night, as the sun dipped below the water, we set up a tent in the yard. Fireflies blinked in the grass. The air was cool, the world still. Aiden and Cole argued over flashlights. Sophie curled in Lamb's lap with her thumb in her mouth, and Mark started a small fire in the pit we'd built years ago. The flames danced on their faces on the 4 pieces of my heart scattered before me, all shining in the same light. I leaned my head on Mark's shoulder. "You ever wonder what our life would have been if it had gone differently?" "Sometimes," he said. "But then I remember every turn, every accident, every fear. It all led here," I repeated, whispering the word. Like a prayer, Liam's voice rose then, telling the others a story. Not a fairy tale, but something real, a memory, soft by time. "Once, there was a boy who thought he didn't belong anywhere," he began, his tone calm, steady. "Then, one night, a woman found him in the rain. She brought him home. And that night, the boy learned what warmth felt like for the first time." Aiden's eyes widened. "Is that a true story?" Liam smiled, glancing at me. "Yeah. The truest one, I know." The flames crackled. I felt tears slip down my cheeks, hot and silent. Mark reached for my hand in the dark, his fingers threading through mine. "He's you, Julia," he whispered. "All of them, they're you." I shook my head. "No, they're us." Above us, the stars began to appear, one by one, scattered and perfect. Sophie fell asleep first, curled between her brothers. Liam pulled the blanket higher around them, tucking it under her chin with a care that made my chest ache. The twins whispered secrets into the night, their voices fading into dreams. When all the children were quiet, Mark and I sat side by side watching the embers die. The night smelled of smoke and grass and salt from the sea. "You remember when you said you couldn't do this?" Mark asked. "I do." And now I smiled, looking at the small tent glowing under the stars. "Now I know I was never meant to do it alone." That was the fear talking. Love was always the answer. He kissed my temple, his breath warm against my hair. "We made it, Julia." "We did," I whispered, "and I wouldn't change a thing." The last ember snapped, and the sound echoed like punctuation at the end of a long, beautiful sentence. The house behind us glowed faintly through the windows, filled with the ghosts of laughter and the promise of tomorrow. I looked at that home, the one Mark had built, the one I had learned to fill, and realized it had become exactly what I'd always needed it to be. Not perfect, not polished, but alive. The woman who once feared love had built a life overflowing with it. And as the tide whispered against the distant shore, I finally understood. Love doesn't divide, it multiplies. Forever.